Mike has done some amazing things, and he's going to tell us about what he's working on and some other things.
Hello, my name is Mike Pannell, and as you can tell, I'm a native of Cheyenne. By the accent, I'm from the south of Cheyenne, that's where the accent comes. Deep south.
Deep south.
Yeah, deep south. So my story really begins, I'm the president of High Plains Railroad Preservation, a non-profit here in Cheyenne. We've been established since about 2016. And the story begins a lot further ago, when in England I started working on restoring railroad cars and engines and locomotives in the UK. A group of us in England, we lived on the south coast in a town called Hastings. We happened to have some really unique diesel trains that ran from Hastings to London. They were unique because they were only 8 foot wide. They were the narrowest standard gauge trains in the UK. And the story is that the reason they were 8 foot wide is because when they built the tunnels on the line, the contractors defrauded the railway, and built the tunnels with 3 linings instead of 5, but they put 5 on the ends of the tunnels, so it looked like there were 5. And then they started collapsing, so they had to add more linings to the tunnels, and hence the trains had to be built specifically narrower for that line from Hastings to Tunbridge and up to London. So when those trains, they served for about 30 years. They were diesel passenger trains, 6-car unit trains. They were going to be scrapped in 1986, and we got together and decided we'd try and save one of them, as they were so unique. And it turned out, it went a bit mad. It turned into saving 16 of them, and also the 3,000 square feet depot that was built for them in the first place in the 1950s. So now the trains, some of them are restored, and the trains are running over the national network again, and they're now 65 years old and still running on the network, which is quite a story. So when I came to America, I came over here in 1991 to look at trains, to look at the steam shop and to meet those in charge of the steam shop and see Challenger and 844 and such like. And it was on one of these trips over here in 91 that I was travelling around with some friends, and I saw a house off of Happy Jack, just west of town. And I thought, that's a strange looking house. As you can see from the picture, clearly it was a railroad car. Clearly it was a very old railroad car, a wooden one. So I didn't think much more about it. We moved here in 2007, and finally we immigrated here, and I went looking for it straight away. And the owner came out and said to me, well, you know, it's my family has lived in this house for 54 years. My father bought it from the CNS for $50 along with an outhouse the day before it was going to be burnt. How rude. So it was there, they lived in the house, they had 10 children, they had a kitchen and bathroom on the outside of the house.
You have 10 children?
No, I have 20 grandchildren, but that's another story. And the owner said, well, it's going to be demolished. If you want to, you can have it. So we started looking into the history of the car. The numbers above the door, you can uncover them underneath the paint. They're always painted above the door on these cars. And we started going back in history, and I remember particularly, I actually made a phone call to Jim Ehrenberg because I was told that he was the noted historian for anything railroad in Cheyenne. And I remember the day I called him, and his voice was, you could tell in his voice, it was like, who on earth is this English person calling me about a railroad car on Happy Jack? And it was a really amusing phone call, and I thought, well, that guy's a bit standoffish. And of course now we're best friends, you know, because he's been so helpful to me and been so great with his knowledge. So the car went back to 1887. It was built for the Denver, Texas and Fort Worth Railroad. And it later became Union Pacific, Denver and Gulf, and then Colorado and Southern. And it was taken off the rails in around about 1947 and brought to Cheyenne as workers' housing. It was a huge shortage of affordable housing in Cheyenne, something that we see even now really. And so the workers, the employees of the railroad were given a house to live in. And they moved out of a boxcar into this passenger car, so it was a huge upgrade for them. But they had to share it with another railroad living in the back half of the house, so they didn't have all of it at time. So anyway, I decided that we'd try and move this car, and there's a couple of historical photos of it. We decided we'd try and move it. I called the house mover in town, and he thought that was absolutely crazy trying to move something inside. He was used to mobile homes and that kind of thing. But he said he would do it, he would agree to it, to move it. And the hospital then told me they would pay for the move, because the hospital had bought the land that the car was on. So they paid for the whole move of the car. This was a picture of the car in Boulder in 1900 with the University of Colorado Glee Club. So we began this task of lifting the car gradually and gradually lifting it up on blocks as gently as we could. And the house mover, whilst he was initially really scared about this, then as soon as he started lifting it, he realised it was the strongest bit of structure he'd ever moved in his life. So it went fairly quickly and fairly smoothly. We took the kitchen and bathroom off the outside, demolished those. We found more historical pictures. This was another picture of the car on an outing from Denver to Greeley in 1910. And then, as we moved the car and we started chipping more and more paint off the car, we started finding some really interesting discoveries underneath the paint. This was on the only original door left on the end of the car. And as you can see, built by the Pullman Company, Pullman, Illinois, clear as day on that door, which was really good to find. We then started taking all the paint off the ceilings. The whole car had been covered in drywall inside and then paint. All the windows had been removed pretty much. The original frames had been removed. And the railroad had repainted the car in 1906. We had a historian that we probably all know in Denver called Paul Wagner, who was an amazing CNN historian. He started digging up paperwork that he was finding in a boxcar in the Colorado Railroad Museum. And it was actual overhaul records for this car going back to 1906, original records. So we knew then that it had been painted by the CNS. The ceilings had been painted in 1906 in a lime green with a dark green stencil, like a lot of those cars at that time had. And as we started taking the paint off, we found this just incredible silver pattern underneath from when it was built. So that was an exciting find for us. That's how the ceilings look when they go back in. And we also found the CNS on the ventilator panel and the number as well, which was the last number we carried in service. So it was soon after that I realised we were going to have to find a site undercover for the cars, because they are so fragile and it's no good having them out in the open if you're going to take all the tar paper off the roof and that kind of thing. So it just so happened that we found an Atlas missile site east of town. And when I saw the door on the side, I realised that we could put railroad cars inside there quite happily. It's about 35 feet wide at the widest point, and the door is 20 feet tall, or 24 feet tall. So it made sense to rent this silo. We've been renting this site now for the last 12 years. So that was us moving the car to the silo for the first time. It was around that time that I got a phone call, and I get phone calls an awful lot from people saying, "Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" Normally I try and say, "No, I haven't. Don't call me again." And especially my wife, she would say, "Don't, whatever you do, don't call him." Okay, so I had a phone call about this caboose that was east of town, and it was just over the brow of the hill, so I couldn't see it from the road. We went to have a look at this one, and this turned out to be a 1913 caboose, UP caboose, 2516. So this was a CA caboose with the 4 windows, as opposed to the 3 windows in the CA1. This one had been used as a house in 1952 for about 5 years. It was the first home for a married couple. And as such, it's been used as a den by children and been just generally wrecked over the course of the intervening years. Somebody had piled bags of cement inside, and all the lime and the cement had rotted out the rear end of the caboose. So we had severe problems trying to move this one. This is the same caboose now, showing the interior, just a couple of shots of what we've achieved since. And this was a picture of the caboose in about 1954, when it was a house, the veteran clearly seen. And then these are a few pictures of how we move them. So what we do, because they're fragile, we cut down mobile home frames. We lift the caboose on cribbing. We use aluminium beams with rollers on top to roll the caboose over onto the frame and set it down, so that you don't have to use any cranes or anything that might interfere with the structure of the caboose itself. And the frame allows the caboose to sit flat, because often, as these are sat on the ground, they just start to lean and twist over time. So that's how we do the moves of these things, just like that. There's the beams and rollers as we winch it over by hand onto the frame and set it down. And then that was us moving it to its new temporary home before we moved it to the silo as well. That's its home in the silo before we started the restoration. That was it, somewhere around 2012. Sometimes we can't save things. There are some cabooses that are beyond it. This caboose here was a caboose that was in the scrapyard on the South Greeley Highway. And the owners asked us if we wanted it, and we said, yeah, sure, we'll go and take a look. As you can see by the roof line, it has some issues. The owners said to me they'd sell it to me because it was a beloved family heirloom. So I went inside and it was full up to this high with aluminium cans. That's how much of a beloved heirloom it was. So we took their forklift in there and tried to lift it, and as we lifted it in the middle, the entire caboose went like jelly around it. So we knew there was no hope for this one, so what we did, we saved all of the interior fittings, all of the cupboards, everything we could possibly save, window frames, cupola, everything to use in our other restorations. Some we can save. So this story here was, I'd heard rumours of a caboose on a ranch between Lyons and Boulder in Colorado. I went down to have a look at it, and it turned out there were 3 cabooses on the land, all of them Union Pacific. And the incredible thing was that all 3 were from different eras. So this caboose here was from 1902. This is what they called a non-common standard caboose. So it had this square, narrow cupola on top, and 3 windows at that time. And that one was missing a cupola. That was caboose 2169. Then there was another caboose which had an interesting roof line as well. That was 2199. The other caboose, sorry, was 2269. This one was from 1890, non-common standard again. And I was told that the person who lived in there died in there, so that was a nice, interesting story to add to that. There's another picture of it during its restoration phase. And then this caboose here was also on site. This one with its lovely adapted roof was caboose 2095 from 1880. So this goes well back in the caboose time frame. So we knew we had to save this one, and we talked to Boulder County, and if you notice the signs on it, they had danger asbestos on there, which if you're in Colorado, that's the best way of getting anything out of Colorado, is to tell them it has asbestos in it. They go mad because they're going to die instantly from that. So I said to them, they were going to destroy all of these cabooses. The Boulder County Parks had bought the ranch, and they were going to put a trail there, biking trail and walking trail. So I said, well, I'll take 2 of the cabooses. Why don't you keep one as a monument, memento of the ranch, and we'll help you restore it. So they said, that's a great idea. We'll pay you to take these because they have asbestos in it. So I said, thank you very much. We'll do that. So we gingerly moved them. We strapped them onto trailers and did our normal thing with them. Carried them back to Cheyenne. I always follow the load coming back because then I can catch the stuff falling off. And we can determine whether it's worth saving or just worth leaving by the side of the road. So the guy drove at about 65 miles an hour back with this one, which was kind of worrying. So we got it back to Cheyenne and we started stripping it down. And that's when we found out that we got one of these. Now, these are so rare that nobody living has ever seen one of these cabooses in real life. These were died out by the 1880s. They were built in the 1870s. They were some of the very first UP cabooses. They had the round cupola on top. They had oil lights, as you can see by the vents on the roof. Horizontal siding, which is really unusual. They were labelled with Union Pacific Railway and the term way car as well. This was 1120, and ours was renumbered from 1120, so we knew we had something that went back to the same period. So that made it really special. So we're going to return the caboose back to its prior form in around 1870, which is difficult because there are no drawings that exist for those cabooses, and there are maybe half a dozen photographs. That's all. So we don't know how the interior is laid out. The cupola is only about 5 feet diameter. So we assume that with all the windows along the sides, you must have had lockers down the middle of the caboose, and a ladder going up the lockers, or steps going up the lockers to a seat in the middle that swiveled perhaps in the cupola. So it's very much an archaeological exercise. We're pulling up floorboards, trying to look for any kind of patterns of where things were inside. A lot of it will be guesswork. So that caboose we hope to finish in the next year or so, and the plan is that when UP 1242, which is in the park in Lions Park, when that moves to be restored and comes down here, which is what the depot would like, then we hope that that 1870 caboose will move down and go behind it to make a truly unique period piece down here. That's our plan anyway. So this caboose here turned out to be the 1902 caboose, missing its cupola. What was interesting about this one was that in Jim Ehrenberger's caboose Bible, which I use all the time, there was a colour picture of this caboose, this actual caboose, in, I believe it was Grand Island, 1948, somewhere around there, or maybe 1942. The same caboose has the same clipboard on the end. You can see the photo of the clipboard. The strange thing with this caboose is that it was sided twice. So normally they would take the siding off and re-side it. This one has siding over the siding. So there must have been a rush in traffic during the war period, and they actually put some of these cabooses, these ancient cabooses, back into service as an emergency measure. So that's a kind of a project in the pipeline in the future, but we hope to return that one to its former glory as well. Here's a couple more pictures of non-common standard cabooses. This one is brand new in Cheyenne, and this train hasn't been lettered or anything yet. In the background you can see an octagonal cupola caboose as well, slightly different style. That's another picture of the non-common standard cabooses when they were first introduced, with drop-shaded lettering and things like that. And a few more of the showing the changes on the early caboose that we have. And several repaints, as you can see. It's always handy because whatever you do with these things, as soon as you sand the paint back, you're going to find all the history you need to know above the door. So that's always useful. So this is all the numbers the cabooses carried over a period of, or the number of repaints it had over a period of years. So that's the caboose as it currently sits. This is the 1871. We found all the window openings. You can see where the window frames and the window sills used to be. And we're gradually adding new framing to stabilise it up this end. UP had added a new frame down this end back in the 1920s. We found a plate on the side which had 377, 334 written on it. We had no idea what it meant, but it was actually the plate that designated the caboose could only be used between Cheyenne and Denver, and I I believe the dead branch as well in its later life. This caboose actually had an 80-year lifespan on the rails, which is astonishing for a completely wood-framed car. We mocked up a cupola just to see how it would look, to see what kind of size we were looking at, so it would come out looking like that with one of those cupolas on top as well. This was the inside of the caboose before we tore it out, but we saved all of it. This was it before I started tearing it out. We found eggs in it, we found horse tack, we found all sorts of incredible mice and rats stuff and everything else. And so they're not very nice. There was still coal in the coal bunker and all sorts of other things. So they're quite a clearing out job. And around here is where you find the asbestos, where the stone used to be. And that's the only place. This one, the 1870 caboose also had the original wash basin. That's cast iron. It had 2 water tanks here and a cast wash basin with a drain going down the leg of the wash basin as well, which was nice to find. We'd never seen one of those before. That was the ice box. They had a separate ice box in those also. But the one in Boulder that we left behind, we helped them restore it. They did a fantastic job with the Parks Department, and we supervised with the livery details and everything else, and that's how it looks now. And that's the one that had that boat-shaped roof on it, and they've done a really incredible job stabilising it. So that was a good story as well, really. Then we had a phone call via the UPHS, which often happens. The UP Historical Society called us. They said, we've had a lady call us about a boxcar in her yard. She's going to set fire to it, but do we want to look at it first? And we immediately thought of you. Well, isn't that nice of them? So I went out to look at it, and it was near Wheatland, between Cheyenne and Wheatland. It was labelled Colorado and Southern. It was about a 40-foot car, very, very old, and we decided we'd try and save it. We found numbers inside, we found the UPD&G numbers inside, so its history started going back from the Colorado and Southern days. And then we've since found UP lettering in there as well, so it goes back beyond the UP days also. So this boxcar dates from around 1883, and it was actually out of service on the ground at Horse Creek by 1902. So it's had a most remarkable life, being moved a couple of times at least. So we got it on its trailer, and I managed to con a truck driver into driving it back to Cheyenne without tarps on it. So I followed, of course, and catching nails and stuff and things like that. And he drove it back around the back roads and things, obviously, because if the sheriff saw it, they're probably going to stop us, I would imagine. And we got back. We found numbers inside, which were really interesting. We found all the grain lines listed inside as well, where they carried grain inside the boxcar. And the door frame pillars are covered in about 100 nails, where they would nail the grain doors in and then take them out again every time the car was used for grain haulage. On the side was the original slogan, the Colorado Road slogan, which was last used in 1904. So I saved the wood, that piece of wood, I cut it out and then drew in the logo again, just so that we have a pattern for that, because it may be the only logo of its type left anywhere. So you can see that tomorrow. It's inside the locomotive outside at the moment. There's the boxcars at Horse Creek when they were on the ground behind the depot, back in probably the 1940s, I would think, at that time. So we have other projects in hand that aren't necessarily going to happen immediately. This is one that we've been watching for about 10, 15 years now. This is the original depot from Carr, Colorado. And it sits on a farm east of Carr. It was moved from Carr in 1964. The baggage room, which was on the other end of this building, was built into the house. And the original depot is still sitting on the blocks it was moved on in 1964. So this is the portion that's left. This is the baggage portion that's built into the house. And this is something that eventually we would like to try and save if we can, as it's such a unique depot. 16 by 24. When you walk inside the door of the depot, it's still green plaster on walls, it still has the ticket window, it still has the ticket drawers, the cash drawers are still inside and everything. It's like a time warp, absolute time warp. So we just make friends with people, we talk to people, we talk to the owners, and we give them all the history we find to inform them of what they have as well. And then eventually, perhaps, the depot will not get destroyed and come to us for preservation, which is the plan. This is the baggage area. You can see the original windows of the depot before the baggage area was added on, and then you can see the different paint colours as well from its original time. Behind the depot is a boxcar from 1882, and it's one of these boxcars in this series, and you can still read the Union Pacific Railway writing and the California Fast Freight Line writing on the boxcar as well. So that is also something we're looking at acquiring when we acquire the depot, because it's such a unique car. So we'll see about that in due course. So this is our silo facility. This once housed a 80-foot Atlas missile weighing 80 tons. The missile would lay down with the nose up facing the door, and the engines down this end of the silo. And the roof would get blown open, and the missile would be lifted by a gantry crane to the raised position, and then fueled ready for launch, which took 20 minutes. And it was soon realised, in fact, as they were building these in 1958, it was realised that they were out of date already, because 20 minutes to launch a missile isn't really ideal if Russia could launch theirs in 20 minutes even. So we moved into this building. It's a fascinating building. It's got so much, the military history is absolutely incredible. And for building trains and restoring trains in there, it's quite unique and quite useful. So as well as the non-profit side of the business, I started a business 2021 restoring trains for museums and cities and things, and this was one of the first jobs that we had in, which was Denver Trolley 04. This was the last ever trolley car used by the city in Denver itself in 1950, and when the system closed, this one was the last one to be used. It ran from Golden to Arvada, and the whole system shut down. So it then became a holiday cabin in the mountains. It was rescued by the Forney Museum, and they were going to burn it. They got rescued again by Wally Wirt, who was a famous restorer, or famous historian down in Arvada. And he saved it, went into storage for another 20 years, and then it came up on the list of Colorado's most endangered places. And it started to get funding thrown at it. So we bid it, we moved it on a truck from Denver up to the silo and started the rebuild process, which was much more involved than we ever imagined. In fact, most of the rebuilds are more involved than you ever imagined, as you well know. So you have to think worst case scenario whenever you look at these things, because it's going to happen, and some more as well probably. So this one took 2 years to restore, and that was it finished. We managed to find a barn in Strasburg, Colorado that had 34 Denver trolley car seats stacked inside, and we bought all of them, so we were able to furnish it with seats. We had people donating original equipment, which we put inside, and that was in 2021 that I finished that job, and the city of Arvada still haven't picked it up, so it's still in the silo, in storage, and they're paying me rent, which is fine. Okay. So it still sits there. And then the second job we had, which took 2 years, we got a phone call from a museum in Oregon saying we've had a forest fire and it's destroyed some of our log cars. They've been somewhat burned. And could we look at rebuilding them, because FEMA were going to throw money at the rebuild of these log cars. So we went out there, we had a look. The cars were in poor shape before the fire, so it was actually a good thing that it caught fire, to be honest, from the museum's point of view. And this is a crane, one of the steam logging cranes that had dropped down onto the cars as well, and caught fire also. And there were 3 of these cars dating from between 1913 and about 1923. And they said, could you take them back and restore them and bring them back? Well, it was a bit of an interesting question, to be honest, because where do you start with that? So we bid the job, and we got the job because nobody else bid it, strangely enough. We took 3 semi-trucks out there, we cut the cars up, we labelled them all into colour-coded labels, we disassembled them, and we brought them back to Cheyenne, and over the 2 years we rebuilt all 3 of those, and the log loading machine as well, and they're now back in Oregon. So that was the biggest job we'd ever done. It involved ordering 17 40-foot 10x10s to make the beams of the car from, and finding those isn't particularly easy. So that was another job we do, and all the jobs we have that are contracts really help us in some way fund the non-profit jobs, because obviously with non-profit stuff there is, you're always looking for help to get these jobs completed. So getting some of these jobs in helps. The next contract I had, which is a current contract, it finishes in 3 weeks' time. We had a call from Utah saying, could we restore their Mercy car for them? Could we quote it? So I went out there and had a look, and again we had a mandatory Zoom meeting, and I was the only person there, so that tells you something about these jobs. So that job came in about 1.5 years ago, and we started restoring that for Utah. They were hoping to save as much wood as they could, but as is often the case, that wasn't possible. The wood was so bad that it was unsalvageable. We did manage to save some of the wood of the shutters on top of the car, but that was about it. So that was the case of stripping the car down to its frame. These cars date from about 1880. They were built in France, sent over as a thank you gift to each state in the US, and 49 states in the US, filled with gifts for people. And most states still have them. We won't mention Colorado because they've lost theirs. We don't know where it is. I don't have it, I can promise you. So this is the current job, and as I say, it will finish in a couple of weeks, and this is how it's looking pretty much right now. We had to source white oak to replace all the wood on this, which wasn't particularly easy, but it's going to go back looking pretty good. And when it does go back, we've decided that we're going to, just for one afternoon, park the Utah car next to the Wyoming car downtown. It'll be the only time the 2 of these cars will ever be together since they arrived on the ship from France. So that's going to be quite a unique event that we're going to do. So that's it. That's really the story of the non-profit as it is at the moment. That's a picture of the silo with the gantry crane that raised the missile and the holes in the roof and stuff like that. You'll notice a bus outside, that belongs to the non-profit as well. The UP bus is a 1949 GM from California. And the locomotive cab is also part of the non-profit, and that was just a save I had to do personally to stop it being chopped up. So have a look at those tomorrow if you like. Yes, Ed?
What's the crane capacity?
It doesn't have anything on it. Well, I mean, the missile was 80 tons, but although the engines were in a frame on the floor as well, so it wasn't taking all the weight of the missile. And there was no fuel in the missile when they stood it up, obviously, so it wouldn't have weighed anywhere near that. But, I mean, if you want it, I can take it out for you. Maybe you can come and take it out. So any questions anybody has? I've kind of rattled through this, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Yes? No, we don't. We've never moved it. It really is a free rolling gantry that had winches in the back of the silo here, and electric motors that would move it back, and we haven't even attempted to do it. If it starts rolling and doesn't stop, we've got a problem. So we just leave it there. You could put a hoist on it, which would be good, but that's all we've done. So anybody is welcome to come and visit us at the silo as well. I have some cards with me if you want to take cards and come out and do a site visit sometime. We have a lot more things there than I've shown you tonight. And a lot more coming as well. So we hope.
Yes.
So interestingly enough, you may have seen the line of cabooses over here in the yard. There's Denver Rio Grande, there's Chicago Northwestern, Mopac, Southern Pacific, and then there's a Rock Island as well. Well, those cabooses are due to be scrapped any time now. So together with Ed here, we formulated a plan, because none of us want to see cabooses scrapped. It seems criminal to throw away stuff like that. It's got so much history to it. So Union Pacific have agreed to donate 9 of the cabooses to my non-profit, and we're going to move them out on trucks to the silo just to clear them out of the yard so they don't get scrapped. 2 of the cabooses are staying, 2 of the Rio Grande ones are staying here, but everything else is coming out to the silo, and we hope to save them and move them out to museums and places like that that can use them rather than see them cut up. So, and UP are happy to move them out because it saves them scrapping them. So, so we like to work together. It's a good partnership working with Union Pacific and with Ed as well to try and save this stuff. So, watch out for the biggest caboose move in modern history. And we'll use the back rows again because, you know, we don't want the sheriff seeing us. All right, well, thank you very much for listening. And